building in the world built by a female architect, the third tallest tower here in the city of Chicago. You're looking up in the sky at what is called the St. Regis. Finished just 5 years ago or so. The St. Regis is once again designed in 2021 and uses a bundling technique. When you bundle 5 buildings into one, that's what your building's going to look like. However, the design comes from the idea that we want to keep our buildings as stable as you can imagine, because every single one of our skyscrapers here in the city of Chicago is designed to sway back and forth. This building does exactly just that, but with a little bit of regulation. You can look to the top of that tower and you can see exactly where something went wrong. The 81st and 82nd floors completely missing up there. What happened? Who's getting fired? Nobody. Let me explain. See, as the building was being constructed, they didn't want it to fail a sway reduction test. So what did they do? From 2017 to 2021, they left the space between those floors completely empty, letting the harsh lakefront winds blow through the building, keeping it much more stable than, truthfully, any of us can imagine on this tour today. The only thing you'll see up there is the cement enclosing the elevators. But a few more things about the St. Regis. At its base, about 13 floors of hotel space, a private elementary school. At its peak, at the top of the second skyscraper you can see up there is a penthouse that's only going for about $20 million. You can afford it. But ultimately, something we can focus on directly in front of us today is going to be the bridge we're about to go under now, the Lakeshore Drive Bridge. The Lakeshore Drive Bridge is what a lot of Chicagoans call LSD. So as we go under LSD, don't trip out and look to the right. See, I'm an architecture tour guide, which means it's my job to talk all about buildings all day long. That's what I've been doing today. But there's a problem. Here on the right, there's no buildings to talk about. And that's because, thanks to a man named Aaron Montgomery Ward who sued the city of Chicago, he said that we should have a public lakefront. And, well, he succeeded. So on the right side of this vessel, on the other side of this bridge, you're going to see no private property, no residential towers. The only thing you'll be able to enjoy today is our beautiful public lakefront here in the city of Chicago. You can see everybody enjoying it today, the people walking their dogs, just enjoying themselves all here on the right. And surely there's nothing to talk about here on the left side vessel, more public land, right? No. What is that? So that's Lake Point Tower, finished in the 1960s by 2 architects, Schipper and Heinrich. Why is that fidget spinner there? Let me explain. Exactly where you started this tour today, not only was the beginning of Chicago, but it's also not technically Chicago land. It's Chicago Fireland. Because exactly where we started this tour today is where the Great Chicago Fire in that general area left all the debris, which means all the land you're looking at now, landfill from the Great Chicago Fire. That's the exact argument that this building here on the left used to be put in that very spot. A residential tower where a lot of famous people live. Sammy Sosa, Scottie Pippen, Tom Cruise, and never Oprah Winfrey. A lot of people thought Oprah lived there. Nope, best friends with the chef at the peak of Lake Point Tower. To the left side of the vessel now is Navy Pier, which I could tell you all about. I'll tell you about it later. You can look directly in front of you today on this tour, where you can see the Chicago Harbor Lock, a way of regulating water. And if you look out towards the right side of the vessel, obviously out there you can look at Lake Michigan. Not only can you see Lake Michigan, just beyond the other side of this house, you can actually see Gary, Indiana. But why would you want to see Gary, Indiana, when you guys can look behind you? How about that view? Ladies and gentlemen, I told you about some of the breaks on this tour. You're on your first one. So get up out of your chairs, get up out of your seats. Do not stand on any of the benches or chairs. Just please enjoy this lovely moment with your lovely friends and families. If you guys have any questions for me, please come talk to me, ask me a question. Sit back and relax. If you guys need me to take any pictures for you, I got you. Want to take any pictures of me? I got you. Want to take any pictures of me and your firstborn child? I got you. Sit back and relax and enjoy this lovely view as I'll get back on the mic in just a few moments.
Oh, I love the Science Museum. I'm sure you had fun at the Science Museum.
After 5 hours, I was like, I'm done.
I'm not gonna lie, I would spend 5 hours there, and I live here, so yeah, you guys gotta go see the bean. It's really.
That's how we do it. Bobby?
I would love to.
As you ignore them. Hey, I'm at work. Stop distracting me. buildings here on the right side of the vessel, though. You're going to be focusing on a building on the other side of this bridge. This building is going to be the NBC Tower. The NBC Tower with the spire on top, designed to look exactly like the Rockefeller Center in New York City. The NBC Tower was designed in 1987 by the architect Adrian Smith in the Art Deco style of architecture, where we actually had something much, much better than Saturday Night Live. I know a lot of you are familiar with Saturday Night Live. You've seen it's going on 50 years. It was based in Rockefeller Center, but we had something even better. At the base of NBC Tower, until the year 2009, we held and aired the Jerry Springer Show. How about that? It's all here on the right side of the vessel. And after your show, you could go get your education at the University of Chicago's downtown campus. You're looking at their downtown campus here on the right side of the vessel. This is their business school, the Gleacher Center. You see all those glass panes you can see through? Student lounges, professors' offices. Would you like to see the classrooms? You can't, because there's no windows at all on the inside of the classrooms, thanks to the architect Dirk Lohan, who thought students would be distracted. So what did he do? Well, no windows at all that cement and concrete here on the right side of the vessel. But keep your eyes towards the right side of the vessel. You're going to be looking at the Apple Store, finished in 2018 by Sir Norman Foster. And every single one of those glass panes holds up an iPad-like structure. Now, I like to think that my job is pretty hard. I make really bad jokes that not a lot of people laugh at. Don't worry, it could be a whole lot worse. I could be the construction worker that dropped 3 of those glass panes during construction. Setting construction back about 1 whole year, because that glass ultimately originates in Norway. Now, I mentioned earlier today that this is actually the exact land where the Great Chicago Times were all started. But one thing you may acknowledge, that actually here on the left side of the vessel, on the other side of this bridge, is now going to be the London House, the former London Guarantee Accident Building. But here on the left side of the vessel is actually where the first American settlement was, also here in the city of Chicago. See, left side of the vessel, where this building is now, is where Fort Dearborn used to be in 1803. The first American settlement where thousands and thousands of soldiers were based all here on the left side of the vessel. Why were they here? Because as I mentioned earlier, this is where the lake and the river used to meet here in the city of Chicago. But keeping our eyes here towards the right side of the vessel, we're going to be looking up in the air now at the second tallest tower here in the city of Chicago. And you already know its name. Trump International Hotel and Tower, complete finished in 2009 by the architect Adrian Smith. Now, when Adrian Smith was working on this building, he built it in context with its surroundings. If you look just to the right of the letter P at the height of the first terrace, match the height of the Wrigley building behind you now. If you look above the T and the R at the height of the second terrace, match the height of Mather Tower, the skinny skyscraper on the other side of the river. Every single one of the terraces on that tower matches the height of a building in its general area. But now the architect Adrian Smith wasn't done with the Trump Tower in 2009, because the very next year, in 2010, he finished designing the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. You want to see how tall the Burj Khalifa is? I got good news for you. I can show you, in theory, on the other side of this bridge. If you were to look back to the top of the Trump Tower, and imagine one more Trump Tower on top of it. That's the height of the tallest building in the world, built by the same exact man in the same exact style of architecture, all behind you now. But how about those phones you guys have on you? How about pointing them to the right side of the vessel? Because on the other side of this bridge, it is now your opportunity to take a photo of the most photographed towers here in the city of Chicago. Let me introduce you to the unofficial corn cobs of the Midwest, but the official Marina City, designed in the 1960s by a man named Bertrand Goldberg. Now, Bertrand Goldberg designed a city within a city here on the right side of the vessel with these 2 corn cobs shaped like flowers. You have a stem in the middle, you have units or petals on the outside. And every single one of those units or petals is shaped like a deep dish style of pizza here in the city of Chicago. As you walk into your front door, it's about 3 feet wide. As you walk out to your balcony, 18 feet wide. No 90-degree angles in these towers whatsoever, because Bertrand Goldberg said there's none in nature. Why would there be in my architecture? Now you see behind you now a city within a city. That means it has a steakhouse at its base. People eating steak I can't afford. At its base, a marina. A city within a city, a grocery store, ice skating rink, bowling alley. Other side of this bridge, the House of Blues that used to be a movie theater. Everything built into those 2 towers. But unfortunately, as a lot of people look at those towers, they tend to get anxious. Imagine having to park your car up there. Don't worry, they're going to get a valet worker to do it for you. They're professionals. And don't worry, there's only been 2 times in Chicago history where one of those valet workers has dropped a car off the side going into the Chicago River. And one was for Steve McQueen's The Hunter, a movie. And another one, an Allstate commercial. Now you know. But keep your eyes here towards the right side of the vessel. You're going to be looking at the Reed Murdoch Building. The Reed Murdoch Building, designed in 1914. Everything I'm about to say about it, you'll be able to see. Counting the bays to the right of the clock tower, the building to the right of the clock tower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To the left side of the clock tower now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a lopsided building. You see all those people on the left? Clueless. They don't know they're looking at a lopsided building. You guys, though, not clueless. You know why? You're about to learn. The bridge you're going under now, finished in the 1930s. That building, 1914. When we have a problem here in the city of Chicago, we do something very simple. It's called getting rid of it. So we got rid of the 6th bay of the Reed Murdoch Center to make space for the bridge we're going under now, the LaSalle Street Bridge. But ladies and gentlemen, raise your hand if you've ever seen the Pentagon here in the United States in Washington, D.C. Anybody seen it? Pretty awesome, right? Well, I got good news for you. How about everybody else who has not seen it? Look towards the right side of the vessel. On the other side of this bridge, you're going to be looking at the largest concrete building you've ever seen in the United States. And if for whatever reason you've seen the Pentagon, how about number 2? Let me introduce you to what is called the Merchandise Mart. The Merchandise Mart, finished in 1930 by Graham Anderson Probst and White, and clad in what is called the Art Deco style of architecture. How can you see Art Deco? Vertical lines going up into the sky, which makes your chin go up, representing the optimism of keeping your chin up in the roaring 20s. Gold, glamorous diamonds, geometric designs all here on the right side of the vessel. Now the Merchandise Mart is so large, it's about 4.2 million square feet. What does that mean to me? Nothing. Want to know something that means something? This building here on the right side of the vessel is so large, it had its own zip code. 60654 into the 1990s. And expensive too, because in 1948, the Kennedy family bought it for only $14 million. They then sold it. 50 years later, in 1998, the Merchandise Mart was worth $500 million. Talk about an investment. But talk about the investment you took on this tour today, because it is now my pleasure to introduce you to Wolf Point, where the 3 branches of the Chicago River meets. To the left, you can see the South Branch, which we'll head down in just a few moments. You can see behind us the Main Branch, which you've completely finished on this tour today. And to the right side of the vessel, the North Branch on this tour today. But I'd like you to stop awkwardly looking at me and look along the riverbanks. Imagine yourself here in the early 1800s as one of the Native American Potawatomi people were. And they noticed something growing along the riverbanks. Onions. And during the summer, those onions stunk. So what do they call them? Chica Agua, which translates to what? Chicago, which translates to what? Stinky onion. That's exactly where we get the name Chicago, here in our beautiful, not stinky city. But keeping our eyes towards the left side of the vessel today, and directly in front of the bow of our ship, you're going to be looking at a building called River Point. The River Point has a parabolic arch at its base and was designed in 2017 by Getchin Partners. And it was designed to look exactly like a Hot Pocket. But at the base of that Hot Pocket right there is going to be these portholes, these ventilation shafts. And that's because this building here on the left side of the vessel is designed exactly above active train tracks, which is going to be a very common theme as we head back down our South Branch store. But River Point also has something else, something called LEED Platinum certification, standing for Leadership Energy and Environmental Design. Essentially saying this building here on the left side of the vessel is one of the most eco-friendly buildings in the world. But we're going to keep those eyes here towards the left side of the vessel. We're going to be looking at the residences at River Bend. A residential building bends with the river. At its base, townhomes. At its peak, condominiums. And I'm not sure how expensive it is to live on the inside of this building, but I can tell you how much a parking spot used to cost in the early 2000s. $50,000. Why? Because you would then park your lovely car at its base, take that elevator all the way up to its peak to the condominiums, where you get an amazing view of the Main Branch of the Chicago River. Let's see that view here to the right. Looking at all these skyscrapers, huh? all designed in the last 5 years, which means in the last 5 years, you lost your view. How about that? But keep your eyes here towards the left side of the vessel. You're going to be looking at some more history for the oldest building you'll see on this tour today. Designed in 1898 in what is called the Fulton House. Fulton House being the oldest building you'll see on this tour today, and a former cold storage warehouse. Remember all the carcasses, the blood, the meat I told you about earlier? This is where it was based, here in the late 1800s. But in the 1970s, it was turned into a residential and an office space, where the architect loved sailing, so he put starfish on the side, portholes on top once again. Now that was Harry Weiss. Harry Weiss loved architecture and sailing so much, he built his house into a boat. Want to see that boat? Left side of this boat. We're going to be looking at the River Cottages, designed in the 1980s, once again by Harry Weiss. 4 units, all going for about $2 to $3 million each during the 80s, and every single one of them owned by the original owner today. And Harry Weiss loved this architecture so much, he asked his wife to move in. What did she say? No. But she probably missed this. If you look back at the River Cottages on the other side of this bridge, you'll see 2 sailboats racing off towards Lake Michigan. All behind you now as we keep our eyes here towards the right side of the vessel, as you're going to be looking at the East Bay Club. The East Bay Club, designed in the 1960s, essentially a very large and expensive gym. $250 per month to work out here on the right side of the boat, because you're going to be not only using some of the best state-of-the-art facilities, but you might even meet or run into some of the best state-of-the-art people. People like Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, the Obamas, all worked out here on the right side of the boat. And I know what you're thinking. Surely you're thinking, wow, they were getting such an amazing view of the Chicago River all from those windows. Not always. Because those windows were not always there. Because this river, well, used to be stinky, as I told you, and it was still so ugly in the 1960s that we invented a new style of architecture here in Chicago. It was called putting your back to the river. So ugly we didn't want to look at it until 1971, when we passed the Clean Water Act here in the city of Chicago, installing all those windows at a later point. So now you can get an amazing view of not just the river, but the Kinsey townhomes here on the left side of the vessel. 80 European-style townhomes, all going for about $2 million each, all completely bought out before one brick was even laid as a part of construction. All here on the left side of the vessel. But you can actually see something here on the left side of the vessel. This little green house. If you look at that green house, pay attention, because then you're going to look to the right and see another one of those green houses. Both connected to the bridge. Both green, both look like a house. What the heck is that? That is what it's called, a bridge house. See, we have bridge houses on every single bridge here in the city of Chicago. What's so unique about those ones? Well, they're simply aesthetically pleasing. But if you wanted to lift the Grand Avenue Bridge up and down during its prime in the 1950s, where do you think you had to stay? Where do you think you had to sleep? Where would you sometimes be 24 hours a day? Exactly in one of those bridge houses, lifting the Grand Avenue Bridge up and down. The only time you would do that is for the industrial boats here in the city of Chicago, back then. Now, the only time our bridges lift up and down is for the sailboats with very tall masts here in the city of Chicago. But keeping our eyes towards the right side of the vessel. 2 buildings you're going to focus on, this green area called Ward Park. Right on top of Ward Park is Erie on the park with these triangles soaring upwards from the sky, and what is called chevrons. Erie on the park has a twin. Fort Kingsbury on the park here on the right side of the vessel. And these 2 buildings designed in the early 2000s by LaGrange, and all designed in the European industrialism style of architecture. Essentially saying all that steel you see today, exposed, but the steel holding up the building as a whole. The city of Chicago's 2 least favorite buildings on this tour today, because according to the city of Chicago, they think that these buildings look like they're just not finished yet. Keeping our eyes here towards the right side of the vessel, just beyond this water tower, you're looking at a building with blue glass on the inside and 4 concrete pillars for corners. The building's name, the Montgomery, finished in 1972 by Minoru Yamasaki, the same exact architect that designed the Twin Towers in New York City. Now, if you put the name of that office building next to the name of this park right here, you get a man named Aaron Montgomery Ward. Anybody heard that name before? One person. Lovely. Aaron Montgomery Ward used to be here in the city of Chicago, where he was working for 25 cents per hour in the early 1800s. As he would go to the store to go buy his goods, he couldn't afford them. Why? Not because of his wages, but everybody who was selling goods was overselling, tripling, doubling the prices. So what did he do? Well, what any good businessman does. Started his own business. And that was the world's first mail order catalog business. So for the people my age, here's what a catalog is. Do I have to explain? You guys look clueless. Amazon. But in a 500-page book, when you want something, you're going to circle it. You're going to send it back to the manufacturer. You're not going to get it overnight, but in 2 to 6 weeks. I've used one before. That's the catalog. But ultimately, why am I talking about catalogs? Because Aaron Montgomery Ward was the first person to promise something. Your satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. What does that mean? That means by the time he passed away in the early 1900s, he was worth about $80 million. What did he use that money to do? Well, if you're looking at it here on the right side of the vessel, because he was living in all the buildings which he formerly owned. But if you remember earlier on this tour, you can remember that Aaron Montgomery Ward sued the city of Chicago 4 different times. One of those cases going on for 20 years long, and that's because he wanted to make sure that Grant Park here in the city of Chicago has that public lakefront. And he sued the city of Chicago up until the day he was still in his deathbed, where he did not think the people of Chicago would be grateful for his sacrifice. But we are grateful, and we're grateful to talk about this building going on directly in front of us on this tour. Because this building's named the Domain, or the former mail order catalog building. This is where all of Aaron Montgomery Ward's orders used to be based out of. And let me explain something. Unfortunately, Aaron Montgomery Ward goes out of business. In the early 2000s, the Groupon company moves in. And as the Groupon company moves in, they found something weird here on the right. Hundreds and hundreds of roller skates. Roller skates? Maybe the order didn't go out? No. If you wanted to work for Aaron Montgomery Ward, you had to be quick, efficient, fast. So what would you do? You'd zip up and down these mile-long corridors, filling orders as quickly and efficiently as possible. Talk about efficiency. Talk about something not so efficient going on directly in front of you today with Goose Island, the only man-made artificial island here in the city of Chicago. This is where the beer gets its name, not the other way around. But something pretty efficient here on the left side of the vessel. And just next year, get excited, because ladies and gentlemen, here on the left side of the vessel, we are building a Bally's Casino. Yeah, notice how nobody made noise for it. A Bally's Casino, a hotel resort, a concert venue. We're even going to expand the Riverwalk all the way from Wolf Point all the way to this point. So you can walk with a drink in your hand from Navy Pier all the way to this point, spend all the money none of us have. Ladies and gentlemen, as you enjoy this lovely weather on this tour today, guess what? This is my second weather on this tour today, which means I'm not on break. Please come talk to me, come ask me questions as I sit here pretty cold and pretty awkwardly. So come talk to me. I'm still at work. You guys are on vacation. We're building for her, facing away from New York. When it's back to New York, how romantic. Look at your partners today and ask, would you do that for me? Probably not, right? Well then unfortunately, he then decided to invite her to try out. Was she any good? Even worse. Even more tomatoes this time. And unfortunately, the Civic Opera building only went for 3 seasons with that name, now called the New York Opera House, because the Great Depression unfortunately didn't fight out. And unfortunately, everything I just told you about that building is all built on a bed. The reason the building most likely has a setup like that, with a setback in the middle, is because in the 1930s, it didn't have AC, and you wanted to keep all the office space in the opera house cool while you're watching your opera, right? So, large setback in the middle of the building allows harsh ventilation, and air flow to your building, keeping everything warm. All these buildings are passed by now, designed by architects. He also may have inspired the building here on the right by Bruce Graham and Dr. Thomas Kahn, this black X-bracing building. Now this building, while this is not the fifth tallest tower here in the city of Chicago, it's the fifth tallest. So a shorter building designed to look exactly like the fifth, the John Hancock Tower. So the X-bracings here on the right side of the vessel exist on the outside, so we can put less pillars on the inside. So surely there's something significant on the inside, right? Let's see, a gym and a donut shop. on the same exact building. What a good balance. But what a good balance here on the right side of the vessel, as we're about to look at a building called Gateway 4. Gateway 4 designed in 1930 by the architect James Stefano, and it begs with the river, colored glass is that color as the river winds today. As you look into it, you might just get lost. So beautiful. If you get lost, look to the left side of the vessel, and in the sky now, where you're going to be looking at the world's largest "You Are Here" sign. How about that? See, we take it so easy here in the city of Chicago, you're never going to get lost. We also take it so easy here in the city of Chicago, even if you've never been to our city, you might have seen the next building on this tour today. Look to the right side vessel. On the other side of this bridge, you're going to be looking at the Gotham City Bank. Because if you've seen The Dark Knight, the film from 2008, you're going to be looking at that bank here on the right, or the building that the Joker broke out of in the beginning of the film. Now, I got bad news for you. The Joker was not stealing millions and millions of dollars. He was actually stealing 35 million envelopes. And that's because that's the number of envelopes that was going out of our old post office daily in its prime, along with thousands and thousands of package. Why? Because we have people like Aaron Montgomery Ward, J.C. Penney, Sears Roebuck, all based here in our city. We need those orders to go out as quickly and efficiently as possible. So, what do? Not roller skates, but we put a hole in the building. Why? Because the expressway goes all the way through that hole, keeping orders going out as quickly and efficiently as possible. But unfortunately, we do not use it for our postal needs anymore today, because it's our old post office, designed in the 1940s, once again by Graham Anderson Probst and White. It was renovated in the early 2000s to be a Tier 1 office space. So on the top of there, you have rooftop gardens, basketball courts, a running track, even for some reason a court for a sport that a few people a few years older than me like to play. What's that sport? Pickleball is the correct answer, all on top of our old post office today. As I mentioned, a lot of famous companies in there, Uber, Walgreens, Square, that's our old post office. So, that's our old post office. But I told you we're taking it so easy on this boat ride today. Do me a big favor. Lay back and relax. And look around. Please find our new post office. Right next door. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to a USPS. Surely you've never seen this before. The United States Postal Service, designed in the 1990s by Knight Architects here on the right side vessel. The largest United States Postal Service when it was designed in the early 1900s, the late 1900s. But ultimately, this USPS here on the right side of the vessel has those yellow columns clad in a color called postal yellow. On the inside, about 4,000 parking spots. On the inside, one of the world's longest conveyor belts. Something else on the inside. A 1-acre ballroom. A ballroom on the inside of a post office. Why? Well, we sent an email to Knight Architects here at Wendella during that time when they designed it. We said, hey, why did you put a ballroom on the inside of your post office? Here's what their response email said. Just in case anybody wants to get married or hold a bar mitzvah. And has anybody gotten married or held a bar mitzvah on the inside of that USPS? I don't know. But maybe you can Google it. Left side of the vessel, you're going to be looking at a building that might feel a little familiar on this tour today. If you remember earlier today, the corn cobs of the Midwest, designed in the 1960s, once again by Bertrand Goldberg, well, you're looking at the same exact style of architecture. However, there's something I left out earlier today. Bertrand Goldberg designed the corn cobs of the Midwest in the 60s as a way to attract people to the downtown neighborhood. Because post-World War II in the 1960s, nobody wanted to live downtown. They wanted to live in the suburbs, living the American dreams in the Chicagoland area. But how about the American dreams here on the left side of the vessel with River City? Designed in the 1980s, once again by Mr. Goldberg. Built to be a city within a city. Public boat tours that go daily during the summer season. You can see the daycare at its base, elementary school. You can see, once again, no 90-degree angles in that city whatsoever. But once again, something a bit interesting on the inside. A climate-controlled park. And that's because you know how lovely the weather is today here in our city? Yeah. Imagine being in a climate-controlled park all day long. Because Bertrand Goldberg is a very big man on a community. He wanted people not just to live within his units, but to represent a strong community and humanity all behind you now. But look directly in front of this vessel today, because directly in front of this vessel today is going to be the Roosevelt Street Bridge. And on the other side of the Roosevelt Street Bridge is actually going to be our newest neighborhood here in the city of Chicago. It's our 78th neighborhood. And we're really good with names, so of course, what did we name the 78th neighborhood here in the city of Chicago? The 78th. So, the 78th by 2040 is going to be about 60 acres of green space, residential building, college campuses, everything you can really imagine. But what is the only thing you will see on top of the 78th land today? Pickleball courts. Keep your eyes peeled left side of the vessel. Keep your eyes peeled towards the right side of the vessel and get that camera out. Because on the other side of our old planting Amtrak train, you're going to look at a Whole Foods market. No, I'm serious. Keep looking at the Whole Foods market, then look to the right of the Whole Foods market. We're going to see a radio tower over there with a red strobing light on top. That radio tower there represents something important here in the city of Chicago. It represents Chicago history. Chicago fire history. This is exactly where that tower is, where the Great Chicago Fire started on October 8, 1871. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm your professor today, and I'm not qualified one bit. Here's how the Great Chicago Fire goes. October 8, 1871 starts exactly on that point. It burned for 36 hours worth of damage. Well, it burned 6 miles up north, even farther from where our dock was today. What was the damage? Well, here's some context. 300,000 people lived here in the city of Chicago in 1871. And how many people were left homeless because of the fire? 100,000. How many buildings destroyed? 20,000. How many people passed away? Over 500. It truly was a great Chicago fire. And it's such a great Chicago fire that a lot of people have heard of it before. And a lot of people tend to think that they know what started the Great Chicago Fire. And there's one word that people point to: cow. And that's because a lot of people tend to think that a great cow started the Great Chicago Fire. Well, who's that cow? That's Mrs. O'Leary's cow named Daisy. Where was Daisy's barn, you ask? Radio tower, where the Great Chicago Fire started. So here's how the story goes. It's 1871, October 8th at around 9 p.m. And Mrs. O'Leary walks into her barn to go milk Daisy. As she goes to milk Daisy, she goes, "Hi, Daisy. Daisy, what are you guys doing today? I've actually forced you to learn something against your will." That's about the Great Chicago flag. The Great Chicago flag being 3 white stripes, 2 blue stripes, 4 red stars. 3 white stripes, north side, south side, west side, white side. That's Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan, 1 blue stripe. What's the other blue stripe? The Chicago River. 4 red stars, which stands for what? Fort Fire Fair Fair. Fort Fire Fair Fair. See Fort Dearborn right across from our dock west today is where that American settlement was. I told you about it. Then you had that fair. And you had the fire. Then you have one last fair for the World Century of Progress Fair, where in 1933, over 50 million people visited our city to science and technology. Directly in front of you at the oldest bridge you'll see on this tour today, the Amtrak bridge directly in front of us. Does it still work? Yes. Amtrak trains cross from one side of the river to the other side. This is also the only vertical lift bridge we have here in the city of Chicago. If you look on each side of the bridge, you're going to see a counterweight on each side. That means instead of lifting up and down like a drawbridge, it lifts up and down vertically into the sky. But ultimately, one last thing before we hop on our break towards the left side of the vessel is the introduction to the front yard of Chinatown with what is called Pink Tom Memorial Park. Pink Tom named after American Chinese businessmen from the 1970s and 1990s who bought up pieces of land for the 25,000 Chinese immigrants that were displaced here on the left side of the vessel because the city of Chicago built the Dan Ryan Expressway during that time. Ladies and gentlemen, as we turn this vessel around, that means we're going on our last break on this tour. Just a few months as we come back on break, that's going to be the last call for the bathrooms and bars for the next 10 minutes or so. This will also be the longest break on this tour. I'll be off on the mic for about 7 or 8 minutes or so. So you guys have any last minute questions? You want to come talk to me, ask me any questions? If you're curious about anything, please come talk to me. Anything Chicago, anything architecture, anything Lucas related, for God's sake. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and relax. If you guys need anything from me, please come talk to me, ask me a question. Now, use the stairs in the front and the back to go get warm and stay cozy downstairs.